Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justice, and today I'm going to fully admit that I am making this review a little bit late because we are covering Until Dawn. Now, when I first heard about this project, I was super stoked about it as someone who is obsessed with the video game, and that's saying a lot coming from someone like me because video games really aren't my thing, but something about those dark picture games just pull me in because they're more like watching a mini series than they are actually playing a game, and they're just so bingeable and fun. So when I heard that this project was coming out, I was immediately on board and I was jumping on that hype train like everyone else. And then the featurette dropped and reviews for it were very mixed, and people were frustrated by the choices that were made because what we got in that featurette was very obviously not the story that we see in the game. Unlike most people though, when I saw it, yeah, I was disappointed that it didn't look like the game, but I am a total sucker for a time loop story, and even though that's not the story of Until Dawn, I was curious to see what they had up their sleeve. In an interview I was reading for the writers of this film, they stated that they wanted to bring something new to the table for this adaptation. They didn't want to rehash the game, especially since the game plays out like a 10-hour movie. Plus, with the remastered version of the game coming out for the PS5 around the same time, they wanted to bring something new to the table and essentially create a love letter to the genre, which I can understand where they're coming from to an extent on that, because it would be a watered down version of the game if they turned it into a film. Like they said themselves, it plays out like a 10-hour movie anyways, so you'd be cutting that down to 2 hours, so no matter what they would have been creating would have felt watered down. But in the same breath too, video game fans are pretty damn easy to please. They keep saying that when they want their movies covered and turned into films, that they want them to be like the video game and stick to that story. But for some reason, and frustratingly so, studios get this wild idea in their head like, well, I hear you, I really do. What if we just like took the name and like changed everything else about the game? Like, that's fine. You think so, right? Like, we made a lot of money off those Resident Evil movies, so like, I think we should do that more often. Like, what do you think? That is the problem with a lot of video game adaptations, is they take so little from the actual source material. Either it's a very poor rehash of the story, or it's a new take entirely. And really, that's something you can say about this movie too, is it's not Until Dawn. It may have the same name, it may have Easter eggs from the game in the film, but the entire concept of the film is not Until Dawn. It's a completely different and original story, which already puts this movie in a bad box with fans of the game going to theaters to see it. And it just proves that this movie wasn't made for the fans of the game. It was made for general audiences, and it was clearly a way for the studios to cash in on the IP of the name Until Dawn alone, because they were going to get butts and seats anyways just because of the namesake. When the reviews finally did end up coming out for this film, they were mixed, to say the least, and it put me in a spot where I decided that I would rather wait for this to come to streaming, and I would watch it that way rather than paying money to go and watch this in theaters. And looking back on that choice, do I regret that? Like, no, not really, and it's complicated. I'm gonna go into spoilers, and if you haven't seen the movie, fair warning, but this movie is a very mixed bag. The first half of it, I would say, is a complete flop with very unlikable and boring characters, which I don't even know if you could say they're unlikable. They're just flat and poorly written. And then the second half, I feel like it ramps up, and I do enjoy that second half way more. I feel like it leans way more into being a cheesy, fun popcorn flick, but damn, that first half was so hard for me to make it through. The story follows Clover, who is on a road trip with her friends trying to find her sister a year after her disappearance. And on their road trip, they end up finding this house in the woods. And while they're there, they all start dying in different ways, only to wake up the next day. And they realize that the only way to escape this place is to survive until dawn. And if they can't, every single night they're gonna essentially be faced by different horror scenarios. And that's where the film leans into its genre hopping concept. Each night is like watching a different horror movie, and you can very much see what the writers were talking about by wanting to create a love letter for the genre. It's a very cool mechanic for the film. The main problem I have with it though is when you come to a night and you don't like the horror that's being showed or the kind of horror movie it's doing, or it's poorly done, it makes the movie drag. And unfortunately for me at least, the first two nights I didn't think were that good, and it honestly had me scratching my head and contemplating turning off the movie before I even finished it. Like, take the first night for example. It's literally a slasher movie premise, and I am a sucker for slasher movies. It is one of my favorite subgenres. I mean, I always have Ghostface just hanging out on the set, so I feel like that says enough. But I think they fumble it so freaking hard because, speaking of Scream, I can't handle horror movies that have been made since Scream that don't handle the tropes in a tongue-in-cheek way if they're going to use them, and actually use them as writing mechanics in the story, if that makes any sense. Like, for example, you have one of our characters telling his girlfriend that, "I'll be right back." No, he's not. And you know that because that is one of the oldest tropes in the book, but it's not played in a playful way. And it's almost like he never even heard Randy's rant in Scream. That's literally horror movie 101 right there.
There are certain rules.
Then later on, you have two of our characters in this big ass house trying to hide from the killer, and there is so many places that they could hide, so many rooms. They hide behind a door. A door. Like, okay. At least one of them had the good sense to hide in a closet, but I digress. The next night too follows witches and possessions, and I wasn't really sold on that one either, as someone who's not the biggest fan of possession movies anyways, and the way they were doing it I thought was really cheesy and more annoying than anything else, and I just felt more confused. Up to this point, the film felt like it was playing like a PG-13 movie that somehow got to be rated R. With the flat characters, the weak writing, and all the bad decisions right in tow for that, it really did feel like I was watching something more like Truth or Dare rather than Until Dawn. Fortunately though, after the Witch Act, the movie picks up, and this is when I started liking the movie around the halfway point. This is when the movie fully starts to earn its R rating and things get truly gnarly, because the next night they wake up and they've barricaded all of the doors and they're hanging out in the bathroom trying to figure out what they need to do. And the water in the cabin hasn't been working the entire time they've been there, and they decide in this moment that they all need a drink once the water does start to work. But after each one of them drinks it, something in the water causes each one of them to suddenly just combust, and it goes one by one in the order that they all had drank the water. It fully embraced how ridiculous the concept of this film was, and the effects for it too were pretty cool. From that point on, the story kicks into gear, and I actually start believing these characters more as characters as they are searching the house trying to find answers and piecing the mystery together so they can discover how to escape this place. And two, they felt more like friends at this point. Well, most of them felt more like close friends. I want to point out that the couple in this film are super toxic, and I don't buy them in a relationship either. And it doesn't help that at the beginning of the movie, they explain to the guy how expendable he is to her because she is just constantly dating flings, but I digress. His closeness is completely up for debate. Performance-wise in the movie, the only one that really stood out to me was Ji Young Yu, which I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but she played Megan, and her character was easily the most engaging for me. And also, that poor girl just could not get a break this entire movie. She gets brutally killed by the slasher killer. She gets possessed the following night. And then when her explosion happens, unlike everyone else's, hers is super drawn out and just gross and gruesome. Like, whew, poor girl. Her scenes were some of the best in this movie, and those go back to her kills, and they hinged on her performance. She really did sell it, and in a way too, it made me wish that you ended up being the lead actress for this film, because I didn't dislike the lead by any means. I think she did just fine, but I was able to be engaged with Yu's acting far more than hers, so I feel like I would have just had a better experience with this movie if she had been the lead. Oh, and while doing some of my research, I discovered in some deleted scenes that one of the nights was going to include werewolves.
What? Werewolf? Great, well, we're fucking dead.
Which would have been an obvious reference to another Dark Pictures game, The Quarry, and I wish they would have kept that in, because from what I saw from the deleted scenes, in some parts of the film, the werewolf would have replaced the slasher killer, and I think that would have broken up some of the monotony in the film, because the slasher killer pops up every single night, even though everything else changes. That ends up being a persistent thing where he keeps showing up. So I really feel like that would have been a better inclusion, and I'm kind of disappointed that they cut it out, because it would have been a cool little Easter egg anyways, since this movie is just Easter eggs anyways. It's not Until Dawn. And if you've played the game and you're wondering why I haven't talked about the Wendigos yet, that's because they really don't matter here. Yes, they are included in the story, but they are more of a side plot to all of the other horror that's going on, and they're more or less just set dressing to all the other horror scenarios that you see, which is a very wild take for me, especially since the original film is so heavily based around the Wendigos. I wish that we would have had more of them and that they would have been more present in this film. And it again just goes back to, why did you make this an Until Dawn movie when it's clearly not an Until Dawn movie? Like, yes, I will be the first to admit that I thought the designs for them were fairly cool, but they're not used much or to very good effect. They're not the horror of the story. So it's just a super big letdown, and I do think that was a huge missed opportunity that should not have been a missed opportunity in the first place. Overall, this movie ends up being a decent enough time though. It's one of the rare times where I was actually okay with most of the main cast surviving by the end of it, and by most I mean I wish that girl's boyfriend died. He didn't need to be there. He didn't fit into the friend group, but I digress. But it's one of the rare instances where I didn't mind that, and I was actually rooting for all the characters to end up surviving the night. This movie didn't transcend anything, and it is a very bumpy ride. If you can get through the first half of the film that runs like a total slog, I do think the second half picks up amazingly well and is way better than that first half. So if you have Netflix and you have somehow not seen Until Dawn yet, and you don't mind me spoiling it for you, then you should go watch it. I think it is fun, at least that second half. And again, I feel like I've already stressed this a bunch, but do not go into this movie expecting it to be the game. You should be able to have those expectations, but you can't here, because it is not that, and it is just, yeah, so Until Dawn, not Until Dawn. Anyways, that's all I've got for today's review. You guys should let me know what you thought of this movie. If you're tired of these half-baked video game adaptations doing whatever the hell they want with the story, or if you liked the new time loop aspect of the film, you should let me know that too. If you couldn't tell, I have some pretty mixed thoughts on this film myself, but I would love to hear what you guys think, and you should drop a comment down below. And if you like the video, leave a like. And if you want more videos in the future just like this, and you're not already subscribed, then just hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you on the channel. And if you guys have any requests for future films or shows that you want me to cover on the channel, you should let me know that too. I'd love to hear them. I say it in every video. I cover everything and anything horror on this channel. But anyways, this has been Justice, and I really hope to catch you guys on the next one. Take care.